Hello everyone, Colin Cadet here for WoodWorkWeb. Today we're going to make this table legs and skirting, and eventually there will be like a table here. This is actually going to be, at some point, is going to be a entryway table, but you could use the same thing for desks, coffee tables. You could make it lower, higher, wider, deeper, all sorts of different things. So stick around and see how we put together this leg system completely with pocket holes. Okay, so let's get started. What I've done to save a little bit of time, I've taken some 3/4 inch stock material and I've glued them together, and that has given me a 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch leg. And the next thing I need to do is trim off one side, and we're going to take it over to the table saw and we're going to cut just a little bit of a sliver off the bottom of each leg, just to give a little bit of a taper at the very bottom. So let's go do that. Before we start cutting the tapers with our tapering jig here, I want to talk about this. Tapering jigs can be very dangerous, and the reason for that is because there's a stop at the end here that pushes the wood through. But sometimes what can happen is, even though this is up against the fence here, the leg itself, in this case, can tend to drift away because there's being pressure put on by the saw blade down here. So sometimes it can tend to do this. So if you're going to use a tapering jig, you need to be very, very careful with them. What I've done on mine is I've put a bolt in, or a stud through, and just a temporary support here, and my favorite anti-skid stuff on the top, and I've actually made a little clamp on mine that I can tighten this down with, so that this leg is now not going to, you can't move that out now. So when I push it through, I don't need to worry about this side because the blade is going to keep pressure on this side, and I'll just run the leg all the way through. It'll cut the first taper. When I'm finished, I need to shut the saw down, take this out, turn it over once, and do the same thing, because I'm going to cut a taper on all 4 sides. And I'm not going to show you every cut because it's tedious, but just so you understand how the system works. The next thing we need to do is to make the apron. That's that wood that goes around just under the top. And we're going to be cutting that at 5.5 inches wide, and then we'll cut it to length. Next, we're going to cut the stretchers that will go under the table, and they're only going to be 2 inches wide, so I've reset the table saw to 2 inches. The length of the apron and the stretchers needs to be 32 inches and then 9 inches. So first of all, I'm going to square off the ends and then I'll cut them to length. I've marked these now. I just need to cut them to length. Now I can cut the 9-inch. Well, I think we've got all of our pieces together now, and we're just about to start drilling some pocket holes because we're going to start assembling these. But before I do that, I'm going to take all of these little pieces because they're a lot easier to sand now in pieces than when they're put together. So I'm going to take them out into my breezeway and I'm going to sand them. We'll be right back and we'll start assembling. The next thing to do now is to use our Kreg jig, and we're going to drill a whole bunch of pocket holes. And I'm not going to videotape every hole, but you'll see as we go along where they're for and what they're going to do. I'm going to start off with the apron ends, and I'm going to drill 3 holes in each one of these. I put some extra holes along the top because I might use those to fasten the top on later on. Now, as you already know, the apron width is 5.5 inches. The problem with 5.5 inches, I want to put 2 drawers in this, and it's really not wide enough to put a decent sized drawer in, and I want to put 2 drawers in rather than 1. The table and the drawers will fit like this. So what I'm going to do first of all is make this, and because of the magic of pocket holes, I can make all sorts of different holes. So I'm going to be actually fastening that just like that with pocket holes. So you'll see when it comes together. So for putting this together, I'm using my right angle jig, and put these together, and then you'll see how this works. There, and that's what the middle apron will look like, and of course the drawers will slide in and out of here. Okay, so let's get started on assembly. My little right angle jig was too small for this, as it turns out, so I've mounted a piece of board on the back here, a straight edge, and another one on the side up here, and this will now be my new gauge. Now, we're ready to start putting this together, but remember, we want to do a reveal on this one, so I'm going to need to lift this up a bit. So I'm going to find some wood that we can use to put under there to lift these up a little bit. Okay, there's a couple of pieces of wood that I have, and I'll just put those underneath there like that, and this is all nicely arranged at a right angle now. Some screws in. do the same thing down at this end. There, I've made a couple, just a very couple of light marks to measure this side. Okay, I just attached the back apron, and you can see again we've used the little pieces of wood. I'm just going to spin the table around now so we can attach that stretcher. And you can see how this is, how quickly this comes together. Okay, we can attach that. Now we'll just put in the last piece for the drawers. And this concludes our part one of this. We're going to have two more parts. We're going to do one on the drawers, how we make the drawers for this, and it'll just be one version of making drawers. And then we're going to make the top on this, and then of course we'll finish it. Don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed, we ask you to subscribe to our channel. We ask you to subscribe to WoodWorkWeb as well, because there will be an article that goes along with this particular build. Don't forget, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. I'm Colin Canet for WoodWorkWeb. Thanks for watching.